Me, 38F, blocked new friend, 40F, after she showed her true colors. I, 38F, met K, 40F, about 3.5 months ago when I started a new job. We hit it off immediately, as the other two coworkers and owner had known one another for 10+ years and already had an established bond. B, were about 15+ years older than both of us, and C, were very loud in an incredibly tiny office about their religious and political beliefs. K started a few days after me. A lot of negative comments were made about her before I met her, so I was expecting the worst. When she finally came in for her first day, I was surprised by how laid back and professional she was, as all I'd heard for the first few days before she started was how snotty and stuck up she seemed in the interview. We got close fast. Work was disorganized and hectic. There was zero training and the software we used seemed foreign to my senior coworkers. I caught on to the job pretty quick, and when she started, because there was zero training, I took it upon myself to help her learn what I'd figured out in the few days I'd been there. She was smart, funny, seemingly empathetic, and I liked her instantly. Honestly, she was a relief to have in the office where I felt incredibly out of place. Info. I got married last weekend to my boyfriend of 11 years. It was a very intimate wedding with only immediate family and friends, and every person invited was invited specifically because we knew they loved us and only wanted to be there to finally celebrate our vows. My best friend of 20 years, threw a bridal shower for me in September. After about a month of knowing K, I wanted to invite her to the shower despite the fact that every woman there was a close friend of mine that I've known for more than half my life. I wanted K to be there, to feel included, and I felt confident that she would fit right in with my tribe. After the shower, two couples that had already RSVP'd to the wedding broke up, leaving 2 spots, seats and entrees, open, and I immediately asked my then fiancé if I could invite K and her husband. He had no issue, as I'd been singing her praises for weeks. Fast forward to last weekend at the wedding. Everything was perfectly coordinated and on time, and the day in my mind, other than the fact that I had very little time to mingle with guests or even eat, went beautifully. I saw K at one point and hugged her hard and expressed my gratitude to both her and her husband for attending. A week went by and I heard nothing from her. She ignored my texts all week until this past Friday when she texted, "What are you doing?" I responded that I was getting dinner prepared and waiting for my husband to get home from errands. She asked me to meet her at a local bar for a beer because she needed to vent about work. I politely declined, as I was wrist deep in chopped garlic, makeupless and still wearing my pajama pants. She asked again, this time sounding a little more desperate. I called my husband and told him K was inviting me out for a beer to vent about work, and would he mind if I skipped dinner and went? As I was talking to him, she called through on the other line and told me her husband was going to join her and that I should ask my husband to come too. I clicked back over and told him the scenario, and he said, "Go. Have fun. I have like 30 minutes left here and then I'll head over and meet y'all." Awesome. More info. K had only met my husband for the first time at the wedding. Never before. I hurry and get cleaned up and head to the neighborhood bar. I arrive exactly the same time. K and her husband pull up. We head inside and she picks the table, tells her husband to sit next to me, and she takes the seat directly across from me, leaving the open chair for my husband beside her and across from her husband. Okay, whatever. I expect her to immediately start in about work, but instead she brings up the wedding. Something that should be said is that I have 6 incredibly close girlfriends but only chose 4 as my bridesmaids. My Mo chose me as her Mo at her wedding. One of my bridesmaids had no bridesmaids at her wedding and instead asked me to officiate her wedding, and the last 2 had me as bridesmaids in their weddings. My other 2 best friends are not married or engaged, and we had talked before the wedding plans about why I chose the 4 bridesmaids and that it had nothing to do with how much I loved each one more than another. I even treated the 2 girls that weren't bridesmaids to lunch to tell them how much their friendships meant to me and that the fact that they weren't bridesmaids had nothing to do with the status of our friendships. Both women are incredibly strong, and if it had bothered them they would have had zero issue straight up telling me. So, K starts manically talking about the wedding. She's jumping from, "Oh my god, it was so magical, you looked like a princess," to, "I can't believe you did that to friend 1 and friend 2. They were so hurt. What were you thinking?" I'm speechless. She goes on to tell me that friend 1 and friend 2 talked shit about me all night at the wedding because I hadn't made them bridesmaids. I stutter out that I was confused because I'd talked to them both on numerous occasions and neither of them seemed to hold anything against me. She claims I'd disrespected them and they were both very unhappy and angry with me. This conversation goes on for a while. K, your wedding was so magical. Oh my god. 2. I can't believe how badly you hurt friend 1 and friend 2. They're amazing and I don't even want to know the women who were standing beside you at the ceremony. At this point I'm starting to feel sick to my stomach with guilt. About 45 minutes into this, K's husband gets up and says he wants to visit the comic book store right around the corner of the bar before it closes. As soon as he walks out the door, K jumps up and says, "Come take a shot with me." Quick before husband gets back. I'm confused and hesitant because our purses are at the table and I don't want to leave everything, and why does she need to take a shot while her husband is gone? She pushes and pushes and I pathetically follow her to the bar while walking backwards so I can see our table where our stuff is still sitting. She obviously knows the bartender and orders 4 shots of Fireball. Y'all, I'm almost 40. No judgment, but Fireball is gross as hell and I stopped taking shots of that in my early 20s. She takes all 4 shots and tells the bartender to put it on table number 24. I'm so confused. We head quickly back to our table and her husband walks in with a bunch of classic comic books, several of which he'd bought specifically for her. She makes a face when he shows her and dismisses him completely. Then my husband walks in. K jumps up because my back is to the door and calls his name. I turn and genuinely see him hesitate when he sees the seating arrangement. But like me, he rolls with it and sits down next to her. She immediately starts rubbing his back and asking him what he's going to drink. He looks at me and I shrug because what the fuck IDK, what's happening? He orders the same beer I'm drinking. Her husband seems completely apathetic to what's going on. I'm idiotically still giving her the benefit of the doubt. Since she's turned her chair towards my husband now, I feel compelled to engage with her so he doesn't feel left out. We chat about comic books and video games and movies for a few minutes until he says he needs to use the restroom. As soon as he's out of eyesight, she's flagging the waiter over for more shots. You guessed it. Fireball. She offers my husband 1, not me. He declines and she takes 3 more shots and then shoves the stacked shot glasses into the waiter's hands and literally waves him away from the table. Then she grabs my untouched pint of beer, chugs it, slams the empty glass down in front of me and says, "Husband will be mad if he sees." My husband and I are staring at one another open-mouthed. She starts rubbing his back again and asking about our daughter. Her husband comes back and I start talking to him again, but with one eye on her while my poor husband is as politely as possible trying to lean as far away from her as he can without falling out of his chair. Her husband mentions he'd just gotten his law degree and I was like, wow. Congratulations. That's a huge achievement. Kay hears me and goes, no it's not. Any fucking idiot can get a law degree. I'm stunned and actually put my hand up and say, what the fuck Kay? She responds, oh. What am I, a bad wife because I said that? I responded, yeah, you are. You're his partner. Maybe be proud of him. She starts fake crying and asking why I'm being so mean to her. Again, I'm stunned to silence. My husband is staring at me so hard I can feel it in my bones. Then she like a light switch stops the waterworks, leans over to me like both men aren't sitting right beside us and says, your husband is so handsome. OMG, he's significant other cute. I just stare at her. She follows this up with, I bet you guys sleep in the same bed together, huh? Me and her husband's name usually sleep in separate rooms. He's usually on the couch. What am I supposed to say to this? Then she says what hurts me most. Info again. Like I said, my husband and I have been together for 11 years. I was very tiny and petite when we met and in the years we've been together I've put on weight and aged. My husband is a tall, attractive man. I have severe insecurities about the fact that I've gained weight and am constantly paranoid that people think my husband deserves better than me. She leans over and says, gosh, he really seems to love you. Like, really love you. That's insane. Her tone, her face, her mannerism is all screaming. How does this good-looking man love someone like you? I should add that she's a very petite pretty blonde who has made it clear on several occasions that she knows she's attractive. My husband stands up and announces he's going outside to smoke a cigarette. She jumps up and says, I'm coming with you. He shakes his head no so hard I feel like his head will slip off his neck while her husband simultaneously says, no, Kay, no. Remember the hospital. I freeze. My husband freezes. She explodes. They start arguing. My husband motions for me to follow him outside, but I can't move, so he just walks towards the door while they continue to argue about the hospital. K sees my husband walk out and screams, "I'm going with my husband's name," and proceeds to run out behind him. I just sit there. I turn to her husband expecting outrage or an apology for her behavior and am greeted with total calm. Like nothing odd is happening. He starts talking about the Astros and I'm just nodding and smiling, feeling insane. Kay comes skipping back in moments after she'd run out the door and sits down. My husband comes back in minutes after her. The checks come. My husband opens the bill and looks at me. "You ordered 8 shots?" I just nodded while keeping eye contact with him so he knew. "No. I did not order 8 FC King shots. Just pay the damn bill and let's go." Then the bartender approaches. "Hey guys, I have an open tab here for 4 shots of Fireball?" Kay is silent. The table is silent. I say, "They're mine, and we pay for those too." My husband is completely aware of what's going on just by looking at my face. We pay. We all get up and walk to the parking lot. Kay starts screaming, "I'm going to my husband's name's house to smoke a blunt with him." Please note she did not say, "I'm going to my friend's house," but over and over says my husband's name while holding onto his forearm while he's simultaneously gripping my hand. Her husband is finally pissed. He says no quietly. Then he says no a little louder. The third no was loud enough to stop her in her manic tracks. She switched immediately to pout mode and followed him to their car. My husband and I walked to our cars quietly until we were outside earshot. My husband, "What the fuck?" I cried. He tried to console me. I called both my friends who weren't bridesmaids and begged for their forgiveness, to which both responded with, "What the hell are you talking about?" Kay messaged me an hour later, "Sweet dreams." I ignored. Next day she texted me at least 10 times asking what we were doing that day. Did we want to hang out? Thanks so much for meeting up for a beer. OMG, I forgot to give you something. I have a gift for you. I ignored every text and call until my husband finally said, "Just FC King, block her for God's sake." Should I have confronted her before blocking her? This is one of the most entertaining posts I've read on here for a while. Your husband is right. Block her. Stay away from her. Do everything you can to ensure she doesn't bring any more madness into your life. Because she will if you allow it. Hell no. She's a drunk psychopath. My God, what did I just read? And you just sat there? I would have grabbed my husband and paid the tab as soon as she started acting crazy. Block her and request to have your seat at work changed. Good Lord. I'm sorry, I don't have any advice, but she sounds like a complete lunatic and I would be extremely cautious as she's causing trouble. Keep her blocked and do not engage. This is like something out of a movie. She's a crazy person. You've only known her for a few months. Cut your losses and walk away. Yikes. Jesus Christ. I think both you and your husband are insane. How and why did you allow yourselves to stay that long? Seriously, you two need to stand up for yourself and set boundaries. You need to work on your insecurities. Block her and never speak to her again. Go to therapy and do some inner work. Holy. I'm not sure you would have had much to say. She would have tried to apologize, and that behavior is just beyond. There's drunks, there's crazies, then there's cray drunks. Maybe consider mentioning to your new boss. If you have to work with her, arrange to meet her 10 million before your next shift and say she overstepped some boundaries and you want to keep the professional working relationship. I'm kind of terrified of my new flatmate, but the others don't seem to see it. Bear with me. I feel like I'm living in some weird-ass horror movie or something RN, and I'm literally losing my mind. Let me lay the scene in fair Verona. 21 I'm a university student and I live off campus in a flat with some other students. Originally there was myself, Brandon 21 Stacy 20F, and Layla 19F. All fake names. However, this academic year Layla is living elsewhere with her partner and we've replaced her with Emily 25F. Emily is a postgrad student at our university, so we didn't really know her prior. She just found out about the room through our posts on the uni Facebook group. Perhaps worth noting that Stacy and Brandon managed the vetting process to pick a new flatmate, as I was in the hospital at that time and trusted their instincts, so I did not meet her until she moved in about 5 weeks ago. I'll put this bluntly, Emily fucking terrifies me. I'm not into shaming anyone for being different or quirky or anything. Hell, I'm most people's idea of a massive weirdo myself, but she is just strange in a way that gives me very, very scary vibes. Let me give you some examples. 1. She's very protective of her room and none of us are allowed in it, which isn't inherently bad. nothing wrong with keeping your private space private. But one day I was the only person home and I was doing chores and I put a message in the group chat saying, "Hey, does anybody want me to vacuum their room while I've got the Henry out?" Within a couple of minutes, Emily called me pretty frantic telling me verbatim no, under absolutely no circumstances can I go in her room, not even to clean, not for anything ever. I jokingly said, "Ooh, not hiding a body in there are you," which she got kind of offended by. She did apologize to me for being short and snippy that evening, but it still weirded me out. She got a lock installed a couple of days later. 2. I was cooking one night and needed the biggest sharpest knife from our shared block but couldn't find it anywhere. Again, I messaged the GC and almost immediately Emily emerges from her room, giant knife in hand. Her only explanation was, "Oh sorry. I had it," and when I asked what she was doing in her room with a literal meat cleaver she just said, "A project," and walked out. 3. An incident when it was just she and I in the flat. She was in her bedroom next to mine and all of a sudden I hear her screaming. Not like any words or anything like she was scream singing along with a heavy metal song, which she does sometimes, but like banshee wailing, like something was fucking terrifying her. I obviously went and knocked on the door and checked on her, and she went quiet but didn't respond to me. Later she texted me to say she was sorry, she'd been having an argument with her boyfriend. But like I said, she wasn't screaming words like she was having a go at someone. It was just blood-curdling, type screaming. 4. Speaking of her boyfriend, he's odd too. When he comes over, they just hang out in her room and if he ever does come out he doesn't speak to any of us. And I don't mean he's a bit quiet or monosyllabic or whatever. I mean he has not ever said a single word to Brandon, Stacy or I. Like we can talk straight to him, even ask him questions, and he just stands there and looks at you. 5. I sometimes get off work late, like in the wee hours of the morning, and several times I've gotten home and she has just been sitting in the living room in the dark. Not on her phone or watching TV or doing anything, just sitting on the couch in a dark room staring into space. These are just a handful of examples of her weird behavior. I've mentioned it to Brandon and Stacy and they both laugh it off, but it's really starting to disturb me. I don't know if I'm being unreasonable, paranoid or mean. Emily hasn't done anything wrong and I don't dislike her per se, she just really unsettles me. Would it be simply awful of me to bring up my qualms? Does anyone have any similar experience and can tell me what they did about it? Thanks in advance. Edit. Okay, people are really confused on the room thing, so let me try to explain more clearly. My issue is not that she doesn't want anyone to go into her room. Of course I understand that. That's why I asked if anyone wanted me to go in their rooms and do it. From any of them, I'd have taken a no or a lack of response and not gone in there. I absolutely respect people not wanting anyone in their space. The part that was weird to me was how she went about telling me not to do it. She didn't just say, "No thanks, please don't go in my room" or whatever. She called me in a flap and kind of yelled at me as if I had done something wrong by even asking, even though she hadn't mentioned anything about not wanting anyone in her room prior to this. It just came off as a weird overreaction to me. Reading this, everything about Emily's behavior screams trauma responses. I myself and others who I have gone through treatment with exhibit a lot of the same behaviors. 1. An insane control over your personal space, not letting others in there. 2. Keeping some type of protection with you near your bed. 3. Screaming could be that she's experiencing night terrors or some type of panic attack, PTSD-related episode. I mean, yikes. I would be scared too lol. On the bright side, doesn't seem like she's a danger to you guys. But she's probably got some serious mental health issues going on. You can talk to your other flatmates about it for sure. I wouldn't necessarily bring it up with her though, cause I don't think she'll respond well lol. Maybe she has some social issues. 1. If I was in some sort of house sharing arrangement, I'd have a lock on my door too. I might trust you guys, but I have no idea who you might be bringing into the house, etc. 2. She might have been keeping the meat cleaver because she thinks that you guys are a bit weird and are giving her creepy vibes. 3. Next time she starts screaming, join in and start screaming too. This will make her feel like part of the group and less socially awkward. 4. When her boyfriend comes over, mirror him as this helps to build trust and understanding with each other. 5. Next time you find her sitting alone in the dark, sit down in the dark with her and share the experience. Create happy memories together. First 2 make me think she's just a slob. When I was juggling untreated ADHD and major depression, my room was a pigsty and I was mortified and terrified of anyone ever seeing it. I had a thriving social life and friends, but it was like when I was back in my dump of a room my world just closed in and the depression hit. Not defending it, but much more likely something like this is going on. Maybe she had the knife because she was inhaling night cheese or something and forgot to put it back. I was questioning it until the sitting in the living room in the dark. That along with her and her BF's behavior would definitely have me unnerved too. Woman shrugging medium light skin tone. Maybe I watch too many scary movies or true crime documentaries, but that 100% would creep me tf out. Tears of joy. I'm not quite sure what you want to hear op. As everyone has mentioned, the behavior is not normal, but there are also possible explanations. We just don't know enough, and neither do you. If you are concerned, I would just look for a new place to live. It's unlikely that your current home is the only place in town that is affordable to you. This is one of those situations where you just have to listen to your gut. If your gut is telling you to get away from this roommate, you need to listen to it. Gut feelings exist for a reason and are often right. Lol, she just sounds like a gothy teenager, to be honest. But could also be the trauma response stuff too. Just be kind to her, sounds like she needs it. Honestly, it sounds like you spend too much time watching slasher movies. If you don't want to be friends with this gal, don't. No need for drama. Let her be the sort of roommate who pays their share of the rent and that's it. I think I'm being baby trapped and don't know what to do. For some context, this girl and I had been hooking up off and on for a little over 2 years. We met on Tinder and the relationship was almost entirely sexual. Then pandemic hit and we started seeing more of each other, and tried the dating thing out. Around last July I found out that she was hooking with her best friend to some old rich dude, fucking him for money, and she had been sleeping with one of my other friends the entire time. Now I have nothing against sex work, but I have a big thing against being dishonest, and she was lying to me for a long time about what she was doing, so I have zero trust for her and cut ties. Also, she was on birth control the whole time we were seeing each other back then. Fast forward a year and another breakup with someone else. I found her again on Tinder and decided to reconnect. We agreed to meet for a coffee and talk, but she changed her mind and says come to her apartment. When I showed up she was wearing nothing but a robe, and after some awkward small talk she gets up and disrobes herself. I should have had more willpower to say no, but I was going through a rough time and wanted the physical affection too. We do the deed. I got up and left, noticing a little bit of period blood but thought nothing of it. 10 days later I get the dreaded text she's pregnant, and wants to keep it. I came over and saw 3 at-home pregnancy tests. She says 2/3 were positive. But I saw something different. 2/3 negatives and 1 inconclusive. Not sure if it was an evaporation line or tampered with. I'm not convinced, it's too soon to tell, and we had sex on her period, so even though it's not impossible, it's highly unlikely. I offered to go to Planned Parenthood with her and try to talk to her about options, but she says she will hear none of that and just wants to have a baby whether or not I want to. She ghosts me the day she went to PP, and said she'd wait a month to see. Fast forward 1 more month and she texts me again saying she's taken a few more tests and they all say positive. Sends me a pic and one did show a faint line, but the other 2 look weird and blurry like before. I told her I wanted to see a test from a real doctor before I will do anything. I don't want to be in a relationship with this girl at all. There is zero trust there. I regret my decision to initiate contact with her again and will take whatever responsibility for my actions that I have to. I'm not sure, but to me it seems like she wants to have a kid and try to win me back with that, or to force me to take care of her through child support payments. I am trying to be patient and wait until I see a blood test, but I'm genuinely scared. Neither of us are ready for a kid, and especially not with each other, but she seems genuinely baby crazy because she was told that she most likely can't have kids from some medical condition. I know I am probably an asshole for not wanting this and trying to convince her to get an abortion. I just know that I'm not ready for a kid, and especially not with her. Ultimately I know it's her decision, but what advice do you have for someone in my position? TLDR. Hooked up with an ex on a one-night stand and now she thinks she's pregnant and wants to keep it. I don't want a relationship with her or a child right now. What should I do? Wait for real pregnancy test, if positive ask for paternity test. Contact only for these 2 issues, else no replies. DNA test for sure. 10 days is way too soon. Ovulation happens about 14 days before your period starts. Why would she even take a test that quickly? My guess is she already suspected she was pregnant before you guys slept together. Pregnancy test, doctors. DNA test. If it's yours. Custody arrangement, legally binding. Child support through proper channels. Co-parenting app to minimize contact with her. If it's not, block her and do not engage. 10 days is not soon enough to show pregnancy. I would just say, "You're nuts," and run. Edit to clarify. She may absolutely be pregnant, but I would bet money it's not yours. Blah blah blah. Get a DNA test, but for fuck's sake, why were you having unprotected sex with someone you don't even like? This is on you, mate. You aren't being baby trapped. You knowingly pushed a button labeled, "May cause baby." Your biggest mistake was agreeing to see her after you left the first time. That's always a recipe for disaster. An at-home pregnancy test probably isn't going to register positive 10 days after fertilization. Generally it takes more like 3 or so weeks for the at-home ones to be able to detect enough. So if those were positive, it's more likely someone else's. Be clear you want nothing to do with her or a child. Let her make her choices, and demand a paternity test if the pregnancy is real. I, 29M, was invited to a threesome, and I might have caused a break-up. I understand the title sounds strange. Let me explain the situation. About 2.5 months ago, an acquaintance of mine, 28M, we're not the best friends, but we know each other long enough to consider ourselves friends, came to speak with me, 29M, privately when we were hanging out with some mutual friends. We started to chat and eventually, he told me that he and his girlfriend, 26F, they've been together for 5 years, were trying to spice things up in the bedroom. I initially thought that was very open-minded of them. Anyhow, eventually he told me that they were discussing the possibility of having a threesome, and my name came up as both of them thought I was an attractive man. I'll be honest, that did surprise me a little, as I've never been invited for this kind of thing. Then, he asked me if I was interested. To be completely honest, I wasn't really sure. I told him that I was flattered, but I needed some time to think. He agreed and told me to take as much time as I'd need. I considered this for the next few days, and I couldn't shake the feeling of awkwardness, and when he asked me again a few days later, I told him that I was feeling a bit awkward about that. He told me he understood, but also, that if it made me more comfortable, we could just see how things went, that we could try, and if at any given time I decided I wanted to back off, we could stop everything immediately. After we spoke, I felt like it could be worth a try. We scheduled everything, and organized it. I'm a straight male, and wanted him to understand that before we got any further, and he didn't mind at all, and apparently he had some sort of deal with her, that afterwards they would invite a woman. Eventually, we decided on a date, and we had an interesting experience. It was very awkward at first, but that disappeared rather quickly. That was an interesting experience, and for me, that was that. However, for the next 2 months, I didn't really see him again. He was still in our group chat, but didn't come to our hangouts anymore. This last Friday, though, he was at a mutual friend's house. I greeted him, but he seemed really cold towards me, and that mood lingered through the evening. That really bothered me, as I really don't like people being rude or cold to me without me knowing the reason. I sent him a text in the next morning and asked if I've done something to insult him. Well, he answered, pretty aggressively. Apparently, he and his girlfriend split up, and he was blaming me for it. We exchanged messages for about an hour, in which he used every word of the book to insult me, claiming I shouldn't have meddled in his relationship. Eventually, he ended up blocking me. Now, I'm not really sure of what should I do. I feel like he's hurt and projecting it on me, but I have a really bitter feeling. I really don't know what to do now. This dude has been in my life for almost 10 years, and I have no idea how I should deal with the situation. Anyone has any advice they can share? Too long did not read. A friend invited me to a threesome and ended up breaking up with his girlfriend. Now he's blaming me for it. I think him and his girl had issues already before the threesome. I think he's just using it as an excuse for why they broke up. Maybe he doesn't want to blame himself or his girl because that's too hard, so he'll blame you. It's not your fault. Just give him time, I think. This is the first time I've ever heard of a threesome ruining a relationship. Shocking outcome. You didn't cause anything. He's just butt hurt. Don't be friends with morons. Let him go. Lol. Your buddy decide to engage in a threesome, knowing full well that was going to fundamentally alter the nature of his relationship with his GF. Then, like a little bitch, he runs off and blames you for it, when it doesn't turn out how he hoped. Like the old saying goes, you pays your money, and you takes your chances. Sounds like you maybe gave her either better dick or more considerate of her needs dick, and she realized she could do better. She's not obviously left him for you because she hasn't contacted you. I wonder if she wanted an encore, or several. He declined and the resulting conflict split them up. Regardless, not your problem. Ask his ex-girlfriend what happened. The majority of couples looking to spice things up by inviting friends for threesomes are already on the verge of breaking up. You did nothing wrong. Maybe he'll realize that once he gets over the breakup, or maybe he won't. Not much you can do. His attitude right now tells me he's probably a bit of an idiot anyway.